Welcome back, everyone. Our topic this morning is who has jurisdiction over the waterways and potential waterways of southern Utah, or as one of our panelists calls them, the dry washes and gullies. Let me introduce our panel for the roundtable today. Starting down at the far end, Tom Mitchell. He's counsel for the Utah State School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. It's easier to call it SITLA, or as we all know it, the School Trust Lands. In the middle here, we have Jason Gipson with the Army Corps of Engineers, very central to this discussion today. And on my right, Dean Cox, Washington County Administrator.
You bet.
Dry washes and gullies.
Dry washes and gullies.
What is the Army Corps of Engineers' interest in these potential waterways or dry washes and gullies in southern Utah?
Our regulatory program is under the umbrella of the Clean Water Act. We specifically work under Section 4.4 of the Clean Water Act, which requires a permit or authorization be acquired when there is fill material or dirt placed in a stream, wetland, or a jurisdictional waterway, which can be, in some instances, ephemeral drainage. And the purpose of that permit or authorization evaluation is to try and limit and reduce the amounts of potential pollutants that may enter waterways that may then travel downstream, impairing waterways, etc. So we work with individuals to try and avoid these impacts if possible. There are different techniques people can implement to construct projects. If those are not available, we work with them to try and minimize those impacts and then compensate for those to offset anything that cannot be avoided, therefore reducing the amounts of pollutants and impacts downstream.
And as we see in the stories, some of these waterways or washes are actually dry. You'd still have jurisdiction over that?
In some cases. Water travels down these washes and eventually makes it to navigable waterways, which the Corps does regulate. What we look at in a generic sense is, can a pollutant discharged into point A make it down to point B? What we want to ensure is that we're maintaining the integrity of clean water and the health of the nation's waterways. At the same time, allowing for reasonable development. We're not project obstructionists, we're actually an independent evaluation authority. What we're trying to do is allow that project to go forth, but minimizing that impact on the waterways.
But you did grant permits for the road under construction so far, correct?
At this point in time, we have issued permits for the first two segments connecting to I-15 and up to the airport near the Fort Pierce Wash area.
So there's a third segment to come.
There are many segments to come, as I understand it. I'm not personally processing those permits. I have staff down in St. George who are working with UDOT and Federal Highways on that.
Do you foresee any problem with issuing those permits in the future?
At this point in time, I don't believe so. We never try and create problems. We actually try and help applicants through the process. UDOT and Federal Highways are actually one of our major applicants. They've been through the process. We've actually created facilitated permitting methods for the public in general. So at this point in time, the most difficult aspect of this project is determining whether or not these individual drainages, big or small, do they fall under the jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act? Do they require a permit?
Dean, as Washington County Administrator, you know these washes and these areas that the Corps has jurisdiction over pretty well.
Well, I don't know that we can say yet that the Corps has jurisdiction over all of them, and that's part of the issue. This really came to a head as the ephemeral washes,
what do you mean by ephemeral
streams? That's I'd call it just a dry wash. One of these washes that we're talking about during our last large flood event last year, which was a huge event in Washington County, didn't even run water, and so we're sitting here trying to have all this big discussion: is this wash jurisdictional or not? But when the determination of jurisdiction is made, it has large impacts on the private landowners and on UDOT and even on the county. For example, if we determine that dry washes down to a foot wide, of which there are an innumerable amount in Washington County, that those are jurisdictional. What then does that mean for the county? Are we going to have to go through a long permitting process in order to run our grader over that road once a year like we try to do? Or if a culvert plugs with sand? Does that mean that we've got to do an environmental impact statement, maybe an endangered species study? With the limited resources that the county has, we are really vested in this question. We all want clean and pure water. I think we all agree on that. And we don't begrudge the Army Corps of Engineers. They've been good to work with, but this is difficult. It has a huge impact on us as a county, on how we maintain our roads and how we do what we need to do.
And Tom, this also has an impact on the school trust lands, doesn't it, as you try to perhaps sell or develop some of those lands for the state of Utah?
It does, Terry. The underlying issue here concerning jurisdiction really addresses who gets to decide and what flows from those decisions. The Clean Water Act itself, of course, in addition to its primary purpose of protecting water, also clearly states that the states have an important role to play. And the role of the states expressly considered by Congress in managing land use planning and retaining their jurisdictional powers over the waters in their states is really where the rubber hits the road when it comes to whether it's a federal action through the Corps or whether it's state regulated. Both the state and the federal government have an equal interest in protecting the waters. The issue, of course, as it's changing now in southern Utah, as we're seeing it, is part of a national change. And that national change, of course, comes about when there is a change in administration. In 2008, the Army Corps issued guidelines to address what's known as the Rapanos decision, and that was to determine and provide guidance both internally and to the regulated community about how the reach of the Corps' jurisdiction would be determined. The new guidelines which are coming out now, in which the Corps is struggling over how to implement before they are adopted, and while they're now making ongoing decisions with a clear change in direction. That, as it applies to these intermittent streams, these washes, is where the real conflict is arising.
Now, I think I hear all three of you gentlemen saying that no one really knows who has that actual legal jurisdiction because of the open-endedness of that Supreme Court case, Rapanos versus the United States.
Well, I think and I won't speak for Jason here. I think the Corps does have an opinion where it goes, where that line is, and that's why they've drawn come up with these guidance documents. The state of Utah also has an opinion as to where that is. Are they in agreement as to that? No, they aren't in agreement to that. And can you look at the court's opinion and say with certainty as to any particular stream how the law will be applied? That's where the uncertainty is at this time.
And I think, Dean, you called it the $64,000 question. Right?
It is, that's correct. These decisions have real impacts for us in the counties. It can determine whether or not a piece of land is developable economically. Huge impacts on how we proceed with the routine things that a county is charged with doing.
I think that's the big key here. How do we proceed? I tell you what, we're going to take a break right now, and we'll come back in just a few moments, and we'll see if there isn't some kind of common ground we can reach, and perhaps how we all do proceed. We'll be back in a moment.
How would you spend an extra day in Utah Valley? Stay one more day. Visit utahvalley.com to make reservations. Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
Native Americans called it the land of the sleeping rainbow. It's a place of unparalleled enchantment, where history, splendor, and industry meet. We call it Sevier County, Soar into the stratosphere July 8th, 9th, and 10th for the Eyes to the Sky Balloon Festival in Salina, right along I-70. Everyone is invited to this free event. Come and experience Sevier County from a new perspective. Sevier County. Come, explore the Paiute Trail and beyond.
Take a look. Take a glimpse. Take a peek. You'll be surprised by what you find.
Join us August 4th through the 6th for the 2011 Tooele County Fair. Enjoy live entertainment, classic car show, rodeo, demolition derby, and more. Head to TooeleFair.com for tickets and more information.
Adventure, beauty, excitement. Tooele County Parks and Recreation, bringing communities together.